thank you for your patience while we try out some brand new equipment which just came out of the box, and it's working first time. Good. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our second session for an opportunity for the City Council to listen to St. Mary's citizens sharing opinions concerning alternatives to at-large voting. And I want to thank the staff for the setup and for all of you that are here tonight. And I'm going to ask Mr. Nutter if he would to give us a prayer.
If everyone would concentrate for just one moment. Lord, thank you for today. Please give us the wisdom and consciousness to listen to our citizens as we speak on an issue of absolute criticality to our city. Also look out for those who are in harm's way and the families who are supporting those in harm's way. Amen.
Thank you, Bob. For being very versatile. Again, we talked about the purpose of this meeting, and our last session was 2 hours. I think another 2 hours would be fine with this session. We did start 10 minutes late, so we'll take that into effect if we need to. And I want to introduce Jim Goodman, who's going to be our facilitator. Jim will be the holder of the mic, so to speak, and he's going to come up and go through the rest of the agenda and how we'll proceed from this point forward. Thanks, Jim, for your volunteering for last session and for this one.
Did I volunteer?
Sure you did. Yes, sir, I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, distinguished guests, and most importantly, citizens of St. Mary's. Welcome. We're here to have the second and third meetings, and we learned some things from the first meeting that we had, and we'll get better and better at this. But here's what we learned, and I'll incorporate that into these comments. To preface anything that I'm going to say, we didn't get the opportunity a few moments ago, as we characteristically do, to pledge allegiance to the flag. What I'd like for us to do, as we did in the first meeting, bear in mind that just a few thousand yards from here, young men and women are ready to lay their lives on the line. We have had many, many people throughout the history of this nation who gave the ultimate sacrifice, and people continue to serve so that we can have freedom. Let's keep that in our hearts and be appreciative and respectful and conduct ourselves in full accord with the sacrifices that have been made. Now, in terms of housekeeping items, St. Mary's citizens and only St. Mary's citizens are to speak. There are no proxies. There are no I represent other groups. Is that clear? Is that right, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's not Jim Goodman saying that. That's the council, Mayor and council. When you step to the podium, or there is no podium, but when you take the microphone, please state your name and address. That's for the record. If you would like to sign in on your way out, if you didn't sign in, you can do that. That's just to know who was here. The proceedings are being videotaped in accordance with legal requirements. State your opinion on this subject. Get to the point, because you only have 3 minutes. And let me say this about that. Any of you ever been in the bank line at the drive-up teller? Person in front of you obviously gets everything done that they're going to do because the carriage has come back and they've taken out their receipt or whatever. And then they sit there and they're either balancing their checkbook for the last 3 months, or they're rearranging the interior of the car. How do you feel when that's going on? Anybody want to throw a catchword out there? Like, dummy, move on. Okay. When your 3 minutes are up, Ms. Bailey is going to hold up a 30-second warning sign. At the same time, at 15 seconds, I'm going to get up and escort the next presenter right up here beside you. We're going to be that car in the line behind you, and we're going to be thinking, your time's up, jerk, move on. Okay? Everybody in here wants a chance to speak, and hopefully you'll get more than one chance to speak with the number of people here. But please do be cognizant that you have 3 minutes and get on with your comments. We will try to capture the comments from everybody by any means whatsoever. One of the council members has offered private meetings. If you have friends who've said they don't want to come and do something like this, Mrs. Williams is hosting some meetings. Get that information from her if you will. We have some handouts, and we're going to move on now to Mr. Tom Canning, who is very, very good at giving us a thrilling presentation. Try to contain yourselves and pay attention to what he's saying. Tom, did I overdo that?
No, sorry.
I know I'm thrilled. All right, Tom. Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you. And Tom, I think you're going to have to hold the microphone and try to talk at the same time. I'm not sure.
Okay. Do I need the mic? No. No, I don't need it. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Canning. I live at 410 Twin Peter Place in St. Mary's, Georgia. Now, not to make you nervous, I'm going to get off script just for a second. I want to thank our team very much for all the work that they've put in, not just in the last couple of weeks, but in the last several months, on studying the subject. I don't think we're done. I know we're not done, but we're going to provide to you today the best information we've been able to uncover, and then let you use that as you see fit. I think you want to thank the team because this presentation is at least 5 slides shorter than the last presentation. So they did suggest that, yeah, there you go. They did suggest that we needed to spend less time on all of it and more time on some of it. So hopefully we're going to do that. Our Get Out the Vote team is comprised of citizens that share an interest in helping to improve voter turnout in our community. In addition to our Get Out the Vote activities, we've been studying and discussing how we in St. Mary's elect our city council, the effectiveness of at-large representation, and alternative voting systems. Today, in response to Representative Spencer's proposal to change St. Mary's from 1 district to 6 districts, we offer our analysis and findings for your consideration. But before I continue, let me make this clear. As a team, we're not here to promote a single methodology or a single solution. Our objective is to provide the best available information to stimulate today's discussion. In this discussion, the first question we should ask is, do we need change? Do we need to change how we elect our city council? Do our city council representatives need to change how they keep in touch with the public, how they listen and address our concerns and issues? And do we, the citizens of St. Mary's, need to change how we participate in city government? During the next few minutes, we're going to review some terms, maps, and numbers that may help you with today's discussion. As I continue, please refer to the table in the one-page handout that I provided you with this table here. Now, you'll probably know, some of you may have noted, that this version, the column here, is a little bit different, a little bit more detailed. I can talk about that later if there's enough time, but substantially this is the same handout. On the left side of the table you have in your hand, you see precinct numbers and names. These numbers match the numbers displayed on the left side of the slide currently showed, 10 through 14. Now, most of you, many of you, all of you may already recognize your geographic boundaries and where you are, but for those of you that don't, this is a graphic display and you can relate to your table on what the name is and the number is of your particular zone. These numbers match the numbers displayed on the left side of the slide. The colors in this map show the boundaries of each voting precinct. Now, referring to the proposed district map on the right side of the slide, you see that boundaries are identified by different colors. Despite the varying size of each proposed district, you probably know that this particular district here, number 2, this one here, real estate-wise, square mileage-wise, they're much larger than this, and this is a rambling district here. So they're all various sizes. The thing that they all have in common, they all have an people in our city. Each one of those districts has, within 1%, 2,854 people. Even though the populations of each district are equal, as you can see at the bottom of the table that you have in your hand, the number of registered voters in each proposed district varies between 11% and 20% of the total number of registered voters in our city. Think about that. I think that's a data point worth considering in your discussion and your decision. And finally, as revealed in the handout, if the 6 proposed districts are implemented, due to residential requirements and district boundaries, 3 current council members elected in 2013 will not be able to run for election in 2016 because those district seats are filled for the next 4 years by council members elected this year. Not presenting that as good or bad information, just a data point to consider. So your current half your council members, if we went to districts, would not be able to run unless they sell their house and move to another district next time around. The race and ethnic balance in our city are displayed in this pie chart. These factors are required to be considered while developing reapportionment plans. And in fact, they were considered. As you can see, probably no surprise to anyone, that the majority of the population of our city these are terms used by the Secretary of State in their voting numbers, as well as census data. The 74% are white and other, 20% are black, and 6% are Hispanic or Latino. As mentioned earlier, the 6 proposed districts each have a near equal population. In this bar graph, please note that only 1 out of 6 proposed districts has a near equal racial balance. As demonstrated by the 3 colors in each column, the other 5 districts are far off that mark of racial balance. So these colors here, you can, if you can't see it, the blue color is the number of blacks in this particular district. The red color is the number of Hispanics and Latino, and the white and other is the green. And as you can see, there's an imbalance in each one of the districts, except for District 5, where there is a close balance there. These, once again, just are statements of fact, either whether you consider them good or bad. This is what the proposed district would look like. Now, a number in a view that is often overlooked, or maybe can be overlooked, is this number here. This shows the number of registered voters. Now, I've chose to include in this chart all registered voters, whether they're considered active or not. There's definitions of active and inactive and what have you. This is all registered voters. So, of the 17,000 people in our city, we have slightly over 10,000 people, almost 11,000, that are actually registered voters. The number of active voters is much smaller. But the significant thing that you ought to take a look at here is, once again, in these various districts, the imbalance in the racial categories are significant. So really not changed if you remember the pie chart. However, you might expect in District 5, where I showed you that the racial balance was relatively close, there is not only a significant difference in the balance, but there's also a significant difference in the number of registered voters in that proposed district. From this point forward, let's review the different voting models and the pros and cons of each. The at-large system that we currently have in St. Mary's is similar to what other small cities in Georgia use to govern. Overall, in Georgia, 73%, or 390 of the 536 Georgia cities elect their city representatives at large. 73% of the cities in Georgia have a similar system in place than we do. Specific to St. Mary's, we have 6 posts with 1 council member per post. There's no jurisdiction or authority limits based on the post designation. The only value of posts is that candidates select a post to choose who they run against. The winner must receive a simple majority of the votes, which is 50% plus 1. If there are more than 2 candidates for the open seat or post, it's possible that a runoff may be required. There are pros and cons of the at-large post system. The system allows for the largest possible pool of candidates. However, you may find that due to post alignments, you can only choose one of several preferred candidates running for the same post. You may have found yourself in the past. This past year, we only had 2 candidates for 2 of the posts and 1 for one post, so he was unopposed. The year before, if you remember, there were multiple candidates for a particular post, and you may have found that you would have liked to see 2 of those 3 or 4, whatever the number was, actually win and be your council member. You didn't have that choice with the post system. You can only pick one of them. Whereas in another post, you may have found that you didn't like either one or any of the 3 or whatever the number was, but because they were unique to that post, you had to pick one of those. The at-large system without post may reduce one-on-one negative campaign. If they're all running for the available seats, then it's less likely that there'd be a one-on-one negative campaign, but rather everybody would more than likely put their best foot forward and be a positive campaign. However, without posts, there is an increased chance for the need of runoff elections. I will tell you that our team is continuing to research this, because there are states, in Oregon, California, and other locations that do have a system where they have that large representatives, but they don't use posts. Right now, we're trying to understand those systems because they appear to be complex and may not fit our needs. But we'll continue to look at it. And if we find something worthwhile sharing, we'll do that. Regarding electing district council members, districts are more common in cities with large populations. I want to make this clear. My references all have to do with Georgia. Some of you, I'm sure, have done your own research online, and you can get national numbers, and the national numbers may give you a slightly different view or a slightly different set of numbers. Our focus has been using the Georgia Municipal Association databases and focusing on Georgia election systems. In Georgia, 20%, or 108 of the 536 Georgia cities, elect their city representatives by district. Once again, you find that it's more in place in the larger cities than in the smaller cities. A district-specific council member is more easily recognized as an ombudsman, and campaigns can be less expensive for the candidate. However, districts limit the candidate pool and limits the voter to electing only 1 council member out of 6. I'm sure that's clear, but punctuated. If you have a district system and you have, let's say you're fortunate enough to have 2 candidates running, and you live in that district, you will only be able to vote for one of those 2 candidates. The other 5 districts will have to be voted on by the people that live in those respective districts. Something to consider. Also, a district mentality in the council with the voters can lead to fragmented priorities and delayed actions required for good city management. Our city is very small, but I'm sure you've seen it elsewhere where one district is fighting for their fair share of the pie rather than looking at the whole picture. We certainly don't want to see that happen here, but that is a possibility where district representatives and people living in those districts will make sure they get their share of the budget and the activity of the city, rather than looking at the city as a whole and taking care of the issues at that level. Next, there are some cities that use combination at-large and district council members. So some cities in Georgia do have a combination of at-large representation and district representation. But only 7% of 38 of the 536 Georgia cities elect their council by this combination method. An example of this combination is, and this is simply an example, 3 districts, city council members, and 3 at-large city council members. District candidates must run for the district in which they live. At-large candidates can reside anywhere within St. Mary's. Voters vote for one district candidate within their respective district. The at-large candidate or candidates of their choice, voters also vote for the at-large candidate or candidates of their choice for each at-large position up for election. Once again, this is just an example. Some of the combination systems, some see the combination systems as a good compromise. Others see this mix as confusing, divisive, and the worst of both worlds, with no value to minority or other groups. We have briefly displayed key data associated with our city's population and registered voters. We have reviewed the pros and cons of the voting alternatives used in Georgia to elect the city council. Now is the time for you to voice your opinion. The district proposal has been made. The question has been asked. The train is on the track. If you don't recognize yourself here, you're one of these people either asking questions or making a statement. Now's time that we need to make a decision before it's made for us. We need to take control of this issue. During this discussion period and in the coming weeks, please reach out to your elected officials, make sure they understand your needs and preference. Use the phone, the email, snail mail, regular mail, talk to them. But you need to communicate. You know, just being here today tells me that that's exactly what you plan on doing. I'd like to thank you all for your attention. I'd like to thank you for being here today. I would like to let you know that this presentation, even though this is the longer version, this version and that version is available at this website. This is stmarysweekly.com website. It's at the bottom of your handout. You don't need to write it down, just take the handout with you. And we'd love to see you reach out to us and join our team or give us your calls and recommendations. So, thank you very much.
Let me ask a question.
Mayor, ask a question.
Just one question, please.
One question. Tom, of the 73% of the cities in Georgia that elect their city council at large, how many in comparable size to St. Mary does that account for?
Understand your question, because we asked the same question. Unfortunately, the Georgia Municipal Association doesn't provide that, doesn't keep track of that. The only way we've determined that we can do that is start calling cities one at a time and ask them. So I'm afraid I can't answer your question.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Guys, if you're not comfortable with it, there's some seats up here, and we might be able to get some people to slide in a little bit. Logistics, I forgot. Restrooms are here. So you can get up and walk in front of everybody and go inside. And I don't know about the ladies' room, but the men's room is beautifully equipped. In country parlance, it's a two-holder. I don't know about the ladies. Potty Parity says it's probably a little more. Please put your cell phones on stun. We'd like to hear your unique ringtone. Not today, thank you. You see 3 comfortable chairs over here. Here's how it's going to work. First person that gets up, comes this way, gets to speak. The next 3 people sit in those chairs. And no, you don't really have to play musical chairs. Just remember what your pecking order is when you sit down. It's like a barbershop. Well, they were there first. So there are the 3 on-deck chairs. We're doing this to speed it up a little bit. At the 2-minute and 30-second mark, I'm going to begin getting the next up person, bring him over here, and putting the pressure on you. So when your 3 minutes is up, you can sit down. You understand? That's the on-deck chairs. First person come on to the microphone, and we're now open for 3-minute comments. And anybody that wants to come forward. I'm sorry? No, I'm sorry. Marty Bailey, just for she's a school teacher. She's keeping me on task. At 30 seconds, you will get a yellow card. You'll be able to see it. We'll make you see it. When the red card comes up, your time is up. But by that time, I'll be up here with the next guest also. All right? Give them the look, Marty. Marty was a 33-year school teacher. You don't want to get that directed at you by yourself. Who's up first, sir? Okay. Thank you very much.
My name is Ed Levy. I reside at 116 Bowman Street. The question I have with the slide is, when the candidates run for a post, and you had mentioned that we had 2 running for 1 post, where do they make their decision, as candidates have done, what post you're going to run for or not run against someone? If I'm phrasing my question correctly. You've got a choice to run for a post, so when do they make that decision that, oh, I don't want to run against Nancy?
I'm out. Mr. Levy, I apologize to you. This is an information situation where you get the opportunity to tell us what your opinion is. It's not like a forum. It's not going to be directed at any of the council members.
Okay.
I apologize to you for not explaining that clearly enough. What we want people to do is come up and express their opinion based on their information and their understanding. Am I correct in that, Mr. Mayor?
If we can have a parking lot with some questions, and we can deal with those and try and answer those.
Okay, it just came up with the way it came up on the power slide. That's where it's.
Oh, one of the team can help you.
Okay.
And this is all.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Are you through?
That's it.
Thank you very much. And next up on that, please, sir. I apologize to you, Mr. Levy.
That's okay.
Good afternoon, my name is Gary Strait, I live at 1002 Brown Traffic Point, and that is Austin Cove. I've given this a great deal of thought, and I'm kind of a simple person sometimes, so if it's not broken, why do we want to fix it? So I am with at large all the way through. Thank you.
Go ahead and hand off the microphone. And someone else will be making their way to the on-deck chair.
I'm Royal Weaver. I live at 105 Royal Court in Sugar Mill. The first thing that I would like to come up, I was recently in Washington, D.C., and I saw this quote that said, "The voice of reason is to be more regarded than the bent of any present inclination." There's no reason to change what we've got. We've just recently gone into the majority. We haven't even seen how that works yet. And then there's somebody from the outside already trying to change the way we do things. People say that we're not equally represented in these different districts. They're worried about where people live as far as who's coming to the council. If you look back at the history of the council, you will see the voters actually decide where people are, who's going to represent us. My wife had been on council a few years back. She happened to be living in Sugar Mill. We had somebody that lived over by the airport. We had somebody that lived out in Cumberland Harbor. But if you look at all the past elections, we already do that part. Now, one thing that doesn't, the slide with the districts doesn't take into account is our military. Most of the military do not vote local. If they do happen to go in and vote, because they are registered in Georgia, they usually go for the national national elections, they don't really care about the council. And that happens with their spouses also. So that's one thing they don't take into account. The subdivisions that have a lot of military, like Crooked River, Sugar Mill, Mariners Landing. So, you know, we're not going to get those right people. Sometimes it's tough, and we already know that you won't always get two good people to run against each other for an election. Sometimes it's tough to get one good person to run for the election. So why are we going to try to cut ourselves down? Right now, this county is in the process of trying to unite. Why do we want to fragment ourselves? That's not a good idea. I want everybody on this council, and including the mayor, to know that if I don't like what you're doing, I'll work to fire you. I don't want to have just one guy that's going to sit there and go, I can only fire one guy and I have to live with the other 5. I'm sorry, that's not the way I want to do business. So I think what we need to do is really need to voice our opinion to the outside folks that are trying to come in and change the way we're doing business. We'll handle what we want to do in St. Mary's. Don't mess with what we got. And I think that the system that we currently have right now is working. And if you don't like the way that system's working, either step up to be elected or get somebody to step up to be elected that thinks like you. That's the way to do things. Okay? I don't think that we need to do anything else for that. And thank you for your time.
LJ, you next.
If you'll pardon me just a second, I'm going to get a microphone stand.
I'm not going to use the mic.
With that, let's go ahead and put it up here.
I won't be using the mic because of the condition I have in my hand shaking. I don't want to use the mic. My name is LJ Williams. I'm a former city council of St. Mary's. I live at 150 Dogwood Circle, St. Mary's, Georgia. I listened at Roy Wiggles speaking just then. I disagree with just about everything he said. Why? Why? Because of the fact that it's hard to get on council nowadays. It's hard to get good people that want to run, that want to help the city, that want to see the city move forward. A lot of people don't run because they don't get the opportunity or have the opportunity to think that they can win an election. Look at council today. In the history of St. Mary, there's only been 2 minorities, African American on council. One of them, Gerald Roberts, was the other. Not saying that this is a must, but I have a better chance of winning an election in a district that I live. Someone mentioned that if we get in a district, everybody wants a piece of that pie. Well, certainly I agree. You have someone in that district to fight for you. The Gaines Davis, the Sand Hill, we all pay taxes, no services. We need somebody collectively in districts to fight for. And we can't do it the way it is now. It hasn't been done. So I stand here to tell you today that many people are not running that are qualified because they have no chance of it. Thank you.
Mr. White? Jay? Sorry about this. Somebody strong put this thing down.
Larry White, 102 Sylvia's Court, St. Mary's. This is my second meeting I've been to on the redistricting issue. Just for everyone's information, all the citizens of St. Mary's thinks it's up to them if we go to redistricting or not. It is not up to the citizens of St. Mary's or the city council. I found this out the hard way yesterday when I found out that our local representative to the legislature in Atlanta can, on his own, initiate redistricting in the city of St. Mary's. He doesn't have to listen to the citizens. Okay. Now, if that doesn't jar you, I don't know what does. He can do whatever he wants to do with the districts of St. Mary's. He doesn't have to abide by what the citizens think or say. Now, let me give you my opinion. My opinion is, I want the best members of the city council that's going to represent everybody, all the citizens of St. Mary's. You don't have to come from a district to represent the citizens of St. Mary's. I've been in cities where you go by district. I didn't have an option when I went to the city for city elections to vote for a member of the city council. I had one choice, and that one person ran unopposed because he had his way within that district. When he got elected, when he went to call this person to complain about whatever problem you had, 9 times out of 10 he wouldn't listen to you because he already got the power that he wanted. It's a power struggle for some people in districts. Okay? At large, I can go to any one member of the city council. They may not like it that I go to, but I'm sure some of them don't. But I can go to any one of them and present my problem. If I don't get satisfaction from one member of the city council, I can go to another. I have that option at large. With districts, you don't have that option to get your problems resolved.
Judy Thurman, 202 West Bryant. I don't have a very eloquent speech plan, and I can't compete with what the gentleman has already said. I agree with some and not all of what they say, but I do know I thank the council that we currently have and the mayor for the job they do. The civic organizations that I volunteer to work with take a lot of time. I have learned since I moved back to St. Mary's, and yes, I was like Jimmy, I was raised in St. Mary's. But I've learned when I came back, I didn't know any of the ones that were on the council. Nobody except Jim Gant was going to run. I sort of knew Jim from way back, but the point I wanted to make is every one of these people are good people, very intelligent, with the love of St. Mary's in their heart. I haven't had any problem going to any one of them. And I don't choose one over the other either, because they are all equally good. I'd say if you have a problem, go to them. If you don't like what they give you the answer, go to another one and see. But you know what they do, they feel in their heart is an honest job that they have done. I don't agree with everything that they've done. I agree with most everything, but when I don't agree, I turn the page and move on. I'm not going to say I'm going to find somebody that's going to do it my way, because that's not real life. I appreciate them. I appreciate their time that they give us. And I'm thankful I have 6 of them, like Larry said. I like having 6 to choose from. I don't know that I would like just one, because that would put them to work against each other. I've watched them work together. Because if any of you know me, or you know me by now by sight, I try to go to every one of the council meetings. I think, LJ, if more people did go to the council meetings regularly, they would become more comfortable with these ladies and gentlemen, because they truly are our servants and work for us. And I love St. Mary's. I said I'd never move back, and I did. But it's a town to be proud of, and every one of them is working for that. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
I'm Pete Post. I live at 111 4th Street, in the part of the infamous Gaines Davis subdivision, which gets bandied about an awful lot. And I'm here in strong opposition to what Representative Spencer is trying to do with the districting thing. And I'd like to, I don't agree with some of what former Councilman Williams said either when he said we haven't had good people run. I think we have excellent people that ran this last time, and we have a great council that has proven over the last 10 months that they can work together and do good things. As part of the last council, my term ended last December. We were forced to do a lot of things collectively as a team. I lived in Gaines Davis, but I worked equally as hard, if not harder, on resolving the Cumberland Harbor issue. Why? Because the citizens that invested money out there in the lots that they bought, and they couldn't get a building permit, deserved the opportunity to develop those lots that they were promised. We worked hard through a lot of litigation, a lot of hours, a lot of executive sessions that were required to make that happen. And in his editorial in the newspaper, Representative Spencer specifically talked about Gaines Davis, how had somebody been from that area, things would have got done. Well, I beg to differ with him. I've lived there for 8 years, and I worked as hard on that, as I said, as the Cumberland Harbor issue. And the thing that distresses me the most about this, it seems like over the last few years, 5 years ago when I ran along with Councilman Morrissey and a few others, when we were at a plurality system, all of a sudden after we got sworn in January, we weren't valued, or we weren't legitimate, excuse me, all because we weren't done by majority, even though 45 or 47%, something like that, I don't remember the exact stat, of the municipalities in Georgia use the plurality system. Specifically, I think, so they don't have to do runoffs, which are expensive. So we had a lot of people come to us, a lot of sour grapes. All of a sudden, we had to change the system. We put it on the ballot to let the people decide. The people decided they want majority. That's great. We also moved the elections to coincide with even years, so we coincide with presidential and gubernatorial elections to try to increase voter turnout to address the very issue that Tom started out with. The problem we have in our area is no different than around the rest of the country. It's not about what system we use to elect our representatives. It's the number of people we have that come to the polls to do that. Okay? I said at the very first hearing that we had about the majority issue, the first thing I said is I could have got 100% of the vote. Every vote that was cast could have been for me. And I still would have been elected by a minority of the citizens of this city because it was a 20% voter turnout. So only 1 in 5 people bothered to come out. Okay? And again, I go back to my issue with this. Those of you that were at the city council meeting when Representative Spencer was there with his first letter, former Mayor Bill DeLoe asked the people up there a very simple question. Maybe some of you weren't there or didn't hear it. He asked, did he talk to any member of the council or the mayor about this proposal before he tried to jam it down our throats, which is the way I see it? And the answer was no. He didn't talk to any one of our elected officials about this proposal. I also asked the question, if it's so important that St. Mary's has districts, why isn't it equally as important for Kingsland? He represents Kingsland as well. I haven't heard one thing about that.
Chris Thurner, 202 West Bryant Street. These acts are getting tough to follow. I see several factors which to me make district system not a good idea. The most significant of the three is the fact that with districts we would have a situation similar in some respects to what we have in the U.S. House of Representatives, where each congressperson fights for his or her own district. And I think that's the situation we'll end up with if we have a district system for election of our council. The difference, though, is, first of all, except from maybe a few gerrymandered districts, there probably aren't too many situations where a neighborhood is split among different congressional districts. That would happen with Shadowlawn in this proposed district map. Bob Nutter would be in a different district than my mother-in-law, both of whom live in Shadowlawn. That's goofy. I mean, so theoretically, Shadowlawn could have 2 members on the council if we go to districts, and we're back where we started from, the people that want districts are complaining about overrepresentation from a particular neighborhood. Anyway, the difference, though, between the House of Representatives and their fragmentation, their fighting only for their own piece of the pie, is we have, at the federal government, a system of checks and balances. We have a president with veto power. We have Supreme Court and judicial review. We have a weak mayor system. So, John knows what I mean. John, as the mayor, can only cast a vote to break a tie. Other than that, he has no power, other than just to run the meetings and whatever influence he can wield. He cannot veto what the council does. That means we're going to have 6 council people, or we would have 6 council people, representing interests in their own district, and only one person with very limited power
looking out for the overall good of the city. I don't think that's a good thing. Another, with kudos to Royal Weaver for mentioning, he used the word fire them. Under a district system, each individual would only have a vote that could affect one council person. If you want to throw the rascals out, you could only throw out one of them. Under the current system, every 4 years, you can throw 3 of the rascals out. And last but not least, you have council members. Not all council members will listen. I guess Judy's better than I am. They're not great listeners. Some are, some aren't. I will keep looking until I find a council person that will listen to me. And for that, I thank Larry White. He had a good point. Thank you.
We have 3 available on deck chairs. They're very comfortable.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Torres. I live at 1100 Delaware Street. I'm not too enthralled about this idea of having district or precincts. My point or question, I guess, is a procedural one. Other than downtown, we have any number of candidates come by my house, put signs on my lawn, knock on the door, and so on and so forth. I guess my only question is a procedural one. Is a candidate running in this city free to go into any community and campaign door to door, ask for request to put up signs, voting signs, et cetera, et cetera? Is this an issue or not? I mean, is I as a candidate, anybody as a candidate, are they free to go anywhere in St. Mary's and campaign?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Bruce. I live at 304 Charleston Way in St. Mary's, and that is not in Oswego. My apologies to those of you who were at the last meeting, because some of what I say you will have already heard, so please indulge me in that. I have been involved in the political system myself. I have been fortunate enough to be elected 4 times to public office in the state. All of those elections on a district basis. One election on that large basis that I lost. So my predisposition is toward districts. But that was in districts which were 50,000 plus, in other words, 3 times the size of St. Mary's. Let me talk to you a little bit about why I'm concerned about changing the system that we have right now. And I compliment Tom and his group for their excellent research on the pros and cons of this. But one that hasn't been discussed too much is how the districts are formed. It was pointed out, number one, we don't have anything to do with it, except as a matter of courtesy. That is handled by the state legislature in Atlanta, not by us. These districts, which you see on this map, may or may not be what ultimately is approved should we have a district legislation actually passed. But this map supposedly was drawn without political considerations. In other words, it was drawn to create districts which met the population requirements of 1 person, 1 vote, and to try to tie neighborhoods together that would have similar interests, but without some political maneuvering going on. But even with that kind of basis of preparation of the districts, I want you just to take a look for a moment at these districts. Look at their shapes and think what that's going to be when the political maneuvering gets into it. When there starts to be some political person with an axe to grind who wants to have political payback or accommodate some particular person, and then figure what's going to go on with how these districts are going to be drawn. In addition, districts are subject to federal court supervision through federal protection requirements. We have a system now that is working and working well, and my personal preference is and hope is that we'll keep it, that we'll keep the progress which has been had, and we'll keep the situation where I've got 6 people that I can talk to as a constituent, not just one. Thank you very much.
Before you get settled, there's no one on deck. If you had some more comments, you can go ahead. Okay, Mr. LJ? You can go next if you want to.
Okay, I give you my reference already, but I'm LJ Williams, St. Mary's, $150. And I got back up here to straighten something that Keith Post said. I've never said that the councilwoman would not qualify. I was referring to minorities when I was speaking, say there are other qualified people out there that would run for office, but they don't think they have a chance to win. I have no problem with anyone on council. Number one, they got to be crazy to run again. They got to be crazy. And I'm going to sit down. Someone asked me one time, say, hey, LJ, I didn't know you were doing drugs. I said, no, I don't. You got to be, you run for city council. But anyhow, I have no qualms against city council. Bob Nutter and all the rest of them, they all know. So people were wrong again.
Hi, my name is Jim Burnham. I live at 513 Palmetto Street, and I've been had a business in St. Mary's and Osborne since 1977. I was at the meeting the other night, and I spoke, and I said something the other night that I wish had been more accentuated. Jason Spencer, our representative, I think he went about this maybe a little backwards. I would have certainly gone to the council first, and I told him that the other night, whenever I spoke the other night. Having said that, I don't think that he has an axe to grind or anything like that. I think that some constituents went to him and asked him to do that. I heard something a while ago that I also must take exception with. It is up to the voters. What I thought these hearings were about was to convey to the council that maybe we would like to have an opportunity to vote on whether we want districts or whether we want to have continue to have posts. I have no great deal of difficulty with the postal system that we have now. I think they did the right thing a couple of years ago when they went back to the majority vote and when they put it on years with the presidential years, because that will increase turnout a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of turnout for our presidential elections either. But it will help. It will also keep down the cost. And I do believe that in spite of the cost of having runoffs, that a majority system is better than a plurality system. But again, I am not opposed to having an opportunity to vote and let all the citizens vote on whether they want to have districts or whether they want to have posts. So again, I encourage the council to consider that. Thank you.
To stay true to our team's self-imposed charter, I'm not going to take any of your time to express my personal opinions, but I do think that our goal of our team was to help you better understand the consequences of a change, whether the change be specific as proposed or some variation of it. There's a few points that some of the audience members made that in fact we had included in our first presentation, but we felt it was more important to spend time on other slides. So I'm glad that they brought these points up, whether it be how Representative Spencer has proposed this district plan, the method that he used, the lack of announcement, and also his statements that he's gone on record saying that he has full authority to present this on his own. So those things are well reviewed. But I wanted to bring you back, if you will, to the slide, and I just wanted to make sure that you understand the consequence, if you will. On the left-hand side of the slide, we already know that those are the 5 precincts, rather. Precincts are are bound by geographic boundary or borders, but they're only a voting limitation. In other words, if you live in a particular address, that's your polling station. That's the only significance that a precinct really has in our system. If you take a look at, as an example, Mary Lee Clark, precinct number 11, and you take a look at a couple of pieces of data there. One is, within that district, within that precinct, there are 2,976 people that live, registered voters that live in that precinct. Now, of those, and Mr. Post made this point earlier, yes, we had real poor turnout in 2013. 2014 was a little better, but in Mary Lee Clark, in precinct 11, only 23% of the people voted. There was 693 out of the 2,976. So we could go through the other numbers, but there was a significant difference in these different precincts to the number of people showing up. In North St. Mary's, only 17% of the registered voters actually voted. Now, if they didn't vote because one of the people in their neighborhood wasn't up for election, I think there's more to it than that. But the other point I wanted to bring up, to just make sure you understand this chart, if we went to districts as proposed, if you look at the columns marked District 1 through 6, and then look at the cross-section as an example for Mary Lee Clark, precinct number 11. If we went districts as proposed, precinct number 11, Mary Lee Clark, would then be in 4 different districts. Okay? So you'd all vote at Mary Lee Clark. You'd all vote at that same polling station. Okay? But everyone voting at, not everybody in that polling station would get the same ballot. They would get 4 different ballots depending on which district they went in. Now, you may say, well, that's just an administrative concern, and you're right, all right, but it is an administrative concern, and that the more complicated you make it, the more apt there are for errors and mistakes. So, anyway, that's what the P's stand for. If you take a look at the XY matrix there, precinct 11, Mary Lee Clark, 4 different districts. If you look at West St. Mary's, 3 different districts, and you can take it on from there. So hopefully you find that particular handout informative. We have to include we have to include the emotion, but let's not forget about the facts.
We'll get another chance if nobody else comes back up.
No, I'm good.
Mr. White?
I'm good.
Yes, you can come.
I apologize for getting back up there again. Larry White, 102 Sylvia's Court. One thing nobody has mentioned before, if we go to districts in St. Mary's, and we start voting by districts in the city, if someone is not happy with that district, they can take the city to federal court. You can see this happen in Atlanta. Okay. How many years do they spend going through the court system to get redistricting? And the people of the district don't choose who gets what. The court says, this is how you do it. And this is how you redraw the lines for those districts. So think about that. Not only, and who has to pay the bill for these court systems if the city is sued? The city has to have an attorney. Who pays the attorney? The city does. Who pays the city? We do. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, couldn't see you from the side. Anybody else want to speak? It's going to be closed in just a moment. Just as a matter of statistics, we had 12 different speakers. In case you didn't take notes on this, distinctively, 8 of them spoke definitively against districts, 1 spoke for districts, and spoke twice. And there were 3 who were simply up here to ask a question or to provide information. So out of all of the occurrences, if you reduced it down to 4 against 1. It was 8-1. Not that that's to influence anyone. I don't have a dog in this race yet. So it's not my opinion. I'm just telling you, we took notes, and it can be proven by the videotape. I'm through, Mr. Mayor.
Maybe. Staying close. I want to look at it. This is a great audience. Real good feedback. And we do, Mr. Levy, we have not forgotten you. We'll make sure that you get some of your questions asked. But I know there's people out here that haven't come up, and the microphone's very friendly, or you could just speak from your voice and speak from your heart. If you would like to come up and do that, please. Can you all hear me?
I'd just like to ask a question about what you just pointed out.
Yes.
You have that same recap from the first meeting?
Yes, I do.
Would you please let us know about that?
I don't have it with me, but it was essentially the same proportion of speakers and support.
Well, that's not what the
That's
paper
not what
said.
the paper said.
Well, maybe this is why I took the opportunity.
Somebody needs to start a paper.
Because I'm not sure that the people who gave those statistics were at the same meeting I was.
Maybe
Pardon
sure
me,
it must
mistake.
not have been.
Well, thank you.
Right. But
I'm through now, I bet.
no. Well, first of all, because I'm not done trying to encourage people to come up here yet and talk. Because I really like, if you have something to say, you do. You don't, if you come here to fact find, we have tried to be as objective as possible. This Get Out the Vote team had started several months ago, if not before that, and has been, as Tom Canning has said, worked very hard to try and get us to the point where we wanted to be able to set a baseline of information so people could begin the discussion and the comments, and so we were hoping that does exactly what we had hoped it would do, which was set the discussion on a path forward. One of the best things about this is everyone's come here, they've shared their thoughts. It's been collegial, and I understand.
Show Mr. Mayor the red card.
Am I getting a red card?
Yes, sir.
Well, how about that? I think I've been thrown up about several times. Okay. Well, anyhow, please, I encourage you, if you want to say something, please come up. If not, we're always available. Thank you, Bill.
You invited more to come up and speak, and I did.
Good.
I had a lot of things I was going to talk about, and I was going to say, and I don't need that mic at all, you can see. So the things that I wanted to say, I've been here for a long, long time.
We need your name, sir.
Excuse me. My name is Bill Creed, and I live at 613 Kingsway in the Shadowlawn subdivision, and I've been here since 1993. And I've been active in the community ever since I've been here. At one time I ran for city council. I think that we have one of the best groups that we could possibly elect, more qualified. They have leadership ability, financial responsibility among all of them. We have people that are proven that they can communicate with the people, and I love that kind of a system. I love a system where I can talk, anyone, anytime I want to. I can even talk to the mayor if I want to. And that sometimes is hard to do. And we have had, in the past, we have had council members that have not been so communicative with the whole of the citizens. And this is because we get to vote for each and every one of them. We don't have to vote for just one person. And I think we all need to keep that sort of thing in mind when we do it. And I, as you can tell, look for the post system to remain in our election capabilities. So please keep all of that in mind. And I think you've done a great job on presenting your cases. Really great. And all of you have done a great job presenting. Thank you very much for your attention to me.
Can you? Yes, please, Chris Turner. And Mr. Creed, I'm not sure you can still talk to the mayor. You got his red card up there.
I know where he lives.
Chris Turner, 202 West Bryant Street. I keep thinking about the point that Larry White made about about, under our current system, we have 6 different council members, and we could probably find at least one of them that will agree with us and take up our position for the council. I was very much influenced as a child in St. Mary's Elementary School when I read Profiles in Courage. And what that's about is elected representatives who have the guts to stand up for what they believe is right, regardless of what their constituents may believe. And I honestly believe that is what we, or at least what I look for in a council person, a representative, or president even, somebody whose judgment I trust more so than somebody who agrees with me on different issues. And if I have a particular position on issue A and Jim Gant doesn't agree with me on that, then I have no right to expect Jim to argue for my position before the council. Say if I try Bob Nutter and Bob does agree with me, bingo, I found somebody to take up my cause before the council. If we have one person per district and that's it, that's never happened. If you got a council person who won't even talk to you, or even if he or she will take up your position, you got nothing. So keep the current system. Oh, except, get rid of posts. That is ridiculous. That is totally arbitrary.
Anyone else? Going once? Twice? Wait. Mr. Bernie? As long as there's no one on deck, and as long as we have time, you will be allowed to continue on as another term.
Just briefly, I wanted to reiterate that while I'm inclined toward the district system, so mark that down as 2 people in favor of it, I am more inclined to have an opportunity for everyone to vote on whether they want to have districts or whether they want to have posts. That's primarily why I came, is to express that I'd like to see it on the ballot. Whether it passes or fails will be up to us at that time, but I'd like to see it on the ballot so everybody can have a voice.
Anyone else? Yeah, please come ahead.
I'm going to have to sneak around this way.
Sneaking is permitted.
I normally don't need a microphone, but I'll use it because it's fun. My name is Dick Russell. I live at Wright Street, 93 Wright Street in St. Mary's. I moved here in 1987. I was, at that time, a Yankee. They tell me now I'm a damned Yankee because I moved down here and I wanted to stay. But I kind of fell in love with this place and I did stay here. Married a young lady, and she comes from Montana and I come from Maine, and neither one of us want to go back to the cold area. I started out this whole, thinking about this whole district voting thing, not knowing quite which way I want to go. And slowly, I talked with a lot of people, I thought about it a lot, and I want to get on the side of the people who want to stick with the voting we got right now. And I'll tell you why. And first off, my friend LJ back there, I want to tell you, LJ, that I voted for you at least twice, and that was only one election. I don't know, LJ, if I hear your plight, man, but I don't know if district voting would help that or not. I've had a history of, when I came down here, I was working for the sub-base on their apprentice training program, and both when I was in New England and when I was down here, one of my primary drives was to involve minorities in our program. And I got a little bit jaded at it, because try as we might, it had to come from the other side too. And if we want, and believe me, I thought LJ was the one, LJ's my man, but We have got to get good black minority candidates to run, and I'd love to see them get elected. I don't know if this would help. I don't know if it would help. And, you know, you got your opinion, I've got mine. But the thing I could say is that I have attended almost every council meeting for at least 5 years. And I just have a little quick story for you. I live out on Wright Street. Back in 2001, when the great annexation took place, and they took in the Gaines Davis, they also took in some of us out on Wright Street. We didn't have a water and we didn't have sewer, but we said, wow, now we're going to get there. Well, you know what happened? We didn't. They forgot all about us, they forgot all about Gaines Davis, and then a short while ago, 2-3 years ago, they got on the ball, our good people up on the podium, and they decided they were going to go ahead and get the promised sewer to Gaines Davis, which they should have. It was the right thing to do. But nobody mentioned my little Wright Street out there, where we have only 6 or 7 houses, and we desperately need sewer, because every one of us is right up next to the marsh, and now our septic tanks are failing. And they told us, yeah, we can get them replaced, $25,000 up. And I don't mind so much spending that money, but I sure don't want to spend it now and have the city come to me in 2, 3, or 5 years and say, all right, now, you're going to get rid of that septic system and hook up to the city sewer. So I kind of took it upon myself, with the encouragement of my neighbors, to see what I could get done. And if there's anybody that ever sat in the front of the council chambers, I talked with them. I talked with them personally. I stood up in meetings. I pestered them. But the thing was, I went to every single one. Jim Grant over there, he knows. I bothered him. And he sure knows the mayor. I bothered him. I bothered him back when he was a council member. But because I went to all of them, because I could go to all of them, because I felt they were all my representatives, I got some action. We are going to get our sewer up there. Now, if I had one person representing me, and I'd gone to that one person, and it had come before the board as a district concern, I don't know if I'd have gotten it. But all I got to say is every single one of them represented me and the people on my street, and they supported us, and we got it. I think it's a good system. I think it's working well. I don't see the reason to change it, because all the difference in the world to LJ, nobody's convinced me that we have a problem with our present system that needs to be resolved. So someone show me the problem, and let's go resolve it. We haven't got a problem. Let's go on with the more important things that we've got to worry about. Thank you.
Big, I'm not going to run again.
Anyone else? Going once, twice, 3 times. Let me correct the statistics, and only for statistical purposes. 14 people spoke. Some of them spoke twice. I only counted them 4 against 1 time. 10 against, a district system 1 for. Excuse me. I am possibly able to make a mistake. I won't question it. I'll straighten it out.
Was in the statement.
I'm sorry, Dr. Vernon. LJ and Dr. Vernon.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I think he made it in under the wire.
I think he did.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. My name is Charlie Smith. I live at 310 West St. Mary Street. If the county knows it, I want to be counted among those who oppose the district proposal that we heard so much about today. I won't be redundant. So many of the strong, compelling arguments that you've heard, you don't need for me to repeat. I would just give you this concept. You know, today with the at-large system, we have an all-for-one and one-for-all attitude at St. Mary's. The district system is a one-for-one and none-for-all concept. Think about it.
I'm done. Anybody else want to speak?
I like this. We keep drawing them out bit by bit. I do. All right. First of all, our thanks to the Winding River folks for adjust the next time. We're going to be at the Senior Center this next time. The new Senior Center, thank you, behind the Heritage Bank, December 4th at 5:30. And I think our setup will be similar to this. And if you think you'd like to be there again, we would welcome, again, voices to think through this. Council will be available again. Council's available anytime to talk about this, and afterwards, pick with Mr. Levy so you can get your questions answered. We want to make sure that happens. But this has been a great turnout, and I know it's the middle of the afternoon. A lot of people have jobs that they may have taken time off from. We're most appreciative of this. We're trying to listen and make sure that we're capturing all the thoughts from everyone. And Council, I appreciate your time too, Tom, for your presentation, your team, and media for being here and giving us the time and also having some a few inches on paper. We appreciate that. And anybody else that I have missed, and to our facilitators over there, thank you both. I appreciate it. And to Ms. Reed for getting this set up with the staff, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So thank you, and we'll see you anytime down at City Hall.